Aloha mai kako. Welcome everyone. I see a bunch of people signing in for today's webinar. I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Stanton Enomoto. I'm the Senior Program Director here with the Department of the Interior's Office of Native Hawaiian Relations. And welcome again. Thank you all for your interest in our Kapapahuliau Native Hawaiian Climate Resilience Program. And I guess as people call in, well, they can join in as we get to it. Today's session is being recorded, and we will look forward to being able to post that recording online. We'll also have an FAQ based on the questions that are being asked or that were submitted, and we'll also post our answers to the questions that have been raised through this session. But before we get further into the program, I want to introduce Brad Ka'aleleo Wong to start us off with some opening protocol. So with that, Ka'aleleo, I turn it over to you.
Hey, mahalo nui Stanton. Aloha mai kako. We have another beautiful day here in Hawaii with the wind and the rain. Perfect for our makahiki season. So for everybody, lono ika makahiki. I think lono is a perfect example for what this program is about and what he kind of brings to us for as far as how we understand our weather systems, how we understand and how we listen to our environments as well. So we want to bring him into our space and acknowledge his presence here in Hawaii, because I think even the last time there's a nice rainstorm coming through and a front coming through, and today we got the same thing. So we'll go with a mele for him. Olo no e ahe ua la e ua ahe ua pi mai no e halau halau loa o lono e Pa'ana pali ikahana ikua poha ko ele avele hu kamalama no hoi makali li kahana ia no kalahiki hiki mai halani na wewe ka honua kahana ke ola inui moe pono le ko upo Nani ho ai kala kahana o kani uhi a maui ke kailoa he loa o kahikina au anoa e. Okay, mahalo nui everybody. That should kick us off for now, and throw it back to Stanton.
Mahalo nui Ka'aleleo, and yes, lono ika makahiki, everyone. It's the season. So getting into today's presentation overview of our Kapapahuliau program, we have a PowerPoint presentation. We'll walk through a number of slides, and then we'll have the bulk of our time today up to 2 o'clock here in Hawaii for Q&A. But before I get to that, I did want to introduce sort of the kind of management team that's overseeing our Kapapahuliau program. So from the Office of Native Hawaiian Relations, again, I'm the Senior Program Director overseeing the program. And you folks saw Kapapahuliau Wong, who will be our project manager. He's going to be overseeing implementation of the program through proposal submission to award to implementation. So those that will be receiving grants from our program, you'll be working very closely with Kapapahuliau into the future. Also from the Office of Native Hawaiian Relations, we have Ka'iini Kimo Kaloi from our Washington, D.C. office, and Lisa Oshiro Suganuma. So you have the whole Office of Native Hawaiian Relations here on the call today. And assisting us with the administrative aspects of things, the financial reporting, letters of award, etc. We have within the Department of the Interior, the office, or I'm sorry, the Interior's Office of Business. So we have Kim Rainey on the call, and let's see, King Nuoha is also here with us from Interior's Business Center. And so they will be processing a lot of the paperwork and administrative end of things. In addition, we have our communications and technical assistant consultants that are helping us out, who are the Kalai Moko group. So we have John Aeto and Cedric Duarte here. They are helping us out specifically for this Kapapahuliau program. And on the technical assistance side, I'll get to it a little bit later, but we do have an email contact for anybody that needs assistance in applying or questions about the funding opportunity. Reach out to John and Cedric's team. And then last but certainly not least, we have helping us out and producing our webinar today, folks from the Bureau of Land Management. We have Dave Pitcher and Martin are over at BLM helping us out on sort of the Zoom production. So if anybody has any difficulties calling in or raising your hand or technical questions, Dave and Martin are here to help you out with that. So yeah, we couldn't be here without them. So thank you for that. And with that, let me ask Lisa. She'll be driving the PowerPoint presentation to get into our slide deck here. So again, we are here today to talk about our Kapapahuliau Climate Resilience Program, and it really is just kind of this high-level overview, at least with these slides. And we have time for Q&A and also technical assistance for those that need specific help around certain aspects of applying or questions about the program itself. So with that, let me get into the overview. So just some background of where Kapapahuliau came from through Congress's statute, and then some details into our program design, how we framed our goals and our guiding principles, established our priorities for how we want to focus this program, and then leading into a little bit more about this funding opportunity, specifically, some of the categories, the dollar limits, et cetera. We'll certainly get into that, as well as, reviewing the eligibility for organizations to apply, the duration of the program, and then into the technical details. And I'll turn that over to Kapapahuliau to walk through sort of the process of getting into the federal granting space. I know some of you are probably aware or probably have had federal grants, but there may be others who are new to this space. So we wanted to provide an overview for that. Some details on the kinds of information we're asking for in our project narratives and budget narratives, the process that we'll go through in reviewing proposals. Again, this is a competitive grant program. So each proposal will be evaluated on its merits. and then review of some timelines and deadlines, et cetera, on when to apply and what to expect going forward. And then lastly, we do have a slide on contact information for anyone that needs technical assistance. So with that, let's get into it. So Kapapahuliau, or Native Hawaiian Climate Resilience Program, got its origins in the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022. So it's about a year, almost a year and a half since Congress passed the act. Senator Schatz was instrumental in writing out this provision. As you see here, it was developed under the Committee on Indian Affairs, and Senator Schatz oversees that committee. So he was very instrumental in bringing about this funding and the establishment of this program. So we certainly acknowledge him and mahalo him for that. As you see here on the slide, the funding amount is 25 million, of which 23.5 has been set aside for implementation of the program, and 1.5 has been set aside for administering this program. And the overall purpose, as Congress directed us to, is really to focus on climate resilience and adaptation activities that serve the Native Hawaiian community. So we really thought out how to design this program in a way that meets its statutory purpose. And I'll get into that on the next slide. So again, we sought out to design this program not only in conformance with Congress's directive under IRA, but we also set about designing the program to align with various executive policies and directives. So this is coming out of the White House around climate resilience, environmental justice, usage or incorporation of indigenous knowledge, protection of sacred sites, incorporation of native language. All of these things were larger White House initiatives that we tried to integrate into our program, and which led us towards this overall program goal for Kapapahuliau to be able to enhance the ability of our Native Hawaiian community to navigate the effects of climate change in ways that maintain the integrity and the identity of our Native Hawaiian people, while also maintaining and enhancing their capacity for coping, adaptation, and transformation. A lot of words, a lot packed into that goal statement, and I'll unpack that as we go through our next few slides. So with that, next slide. So looking at sort of these guiding principles, how do we implement that overall goal statement? It really, begins with this notion of aloha aina. And I know many of you on the call don't need a definition, don't need an explanation. You live it, you are it. It really is the connection that we as Kanaka Maoli have with our lands here in Hawaii. And they're almost synonymous. Without one cannot exist without the other. So we really try to embrace that value, that notion of aloha aina. Secondly is this idea that Native Hawaiian organizations, through all of their work, whether it's education, health, aina stewardship, advocacy, whatever it may be, Native Hawaiian organizations through their work are reflective and representative of our broader lahui, our Kanaka Maoli community, right? So we wanted to embrace this and focus Kapapahuliau on Native Hawaiian organizations and the work that they do, recognizing our third guiding principle, which is around the effects of climate change. So as we all know, climate change is going to cut across all of the things we do, whether it's extreme weather events or sea level rise, whatever it may be. It's going to impact us directly or perhaps even indirectly through something like a pandemic or something like economic shocks to our supply chain or these types of things. And these changes are not going to go away anytime soon based on what we know. And in some instances, there's a potential for these impacts to increase over time. So it's a long-term process of or effect of climate change impacting who we are and where we are here in Hawaii. And of course, over time, it's going to impact multiple generations. So it will exceed our lifetimes or the lifetimes of us on the call and impact our children, our grandchildren, and their children. So this is, something that's long term, and we need to be mindful of that. Which gets us back to sort of our fourth guiding principle around who we are as Kanaka Maoli. And I think there are generations, centuries of indigenous knowledge that have informed us almost at the genetic level of who we are and how we are capable of adapting to environmental change. I mean, we sailed here from the South Pacific, we established here, we adapted to the various changes in our environment here in Hawaii. It's inherent in our being to utilize that knowledge and understanding of our place as we look forward into a climate future. So we really wanted to bring in indigenous knowledge and the incorporation of indigenous knowledge into this program, which gets us to our fifth guiding principle around kuleana. It's not quite appropriate for knowledge to be held in one space and not be shared, not be conversed with others. So I think we have a responsibility through this program to not only gain from it in our respective spaces, but also the opportunity to share and learn from others to, again, reinforce this idea of resilience and advance our collective lahui through shared learning into this climate future. And through that, we get to kind of our overall program goal of climate resilience. So this circle that ties us all together. Yeah. So from that, our goal, our guiding principles, we established a set of key priorities for this program around climate change, and I'll walk through the three of them. The first is dealing with sort of a response, dealing with things that have happened or are happening. So kind of this coping idea. So it could be an extreme weather event, or it could be a king tide or a storm event, say, that exposes or erodes a coastal area. Something like that has happened or is happening that needs to be responded to by the work of a particular Native Hawaiian organization. The second priority area deals with looking ahead. So it's being preparatory, anticipatory about the effects of climate change on the work that your organization does. And when we think about adaptation, it's typically thought about as a cycle. So in one sense, as you see in the graphic, it's about increasing awareness, understanding of what that impact is. And then secondly, planning for what those risks are or what the vulnerabilities are to those potential impacts, and then designing a plan around it, and then implementing that plan to achieve certain outcomes that are, adaptive to those impacts. And it could be, on-site work or community engagement or other things. And then the fourth aspect of adaptation is really learning from that work. What did we learn? What can we do better? How do we improve? How has the climate changed? And then the cycle repeats itself. The third priority area that we're focusing on this program deals around transformation. So it's beyond one step, perhaps beyond adaptation, where we can keep learning from the things that we're doing within the systems that we're operating in. So whether it's governance or decision making or knowledge or other things, transformation means stepping outside of that, thinking outside the box, taking some risks, and seeing a better way to do what we're doing, again, in the face of climate change. So with this, our Kapapahuliau program, we wanted to create a space in which Native Hawaiian organizations who are in sort of these transformational areas to provide that opportunity to explore that further. So these are our three kind of program priority areas, and we're asking for proposals that meet one of them or parts of them with respect to adaptation. And then, getting into the funding categories themselves, our next slide, we've identified or established kind of three ways in which Native Hawaiian organizations can apply for funding. The first is what we're referring to as kiakahi, or reflective of a single-masted canoe, where it's an individual Native Hawaiian organization coming in with an idea to deal with climate change for their organizational purposes. The second funding category is a wa'a, or a fleet or a group of sailing canoes moving in a shared direction with a common purpose, all working towards a shared outcome. And these outcomes could be geographic. It could be in a particular, as you see, Ahupua'a or Moku, Mokupuni, what have you there. There could be a geographic connection. Another way in which Native Hawaiian organizations may want to try and partner together, it could be through an association. So it could be something like an association of homesteads or civic clubs or healthcare service providers or educational groups or what have you. It's shared around an association. And then related to that could be a third grouping around a community of practice. So maybe it is, say, a group of lo'ikalo practitioners decide, hey, we have this common climate change problem, and if we hui together, maybe there's a way we can do something. Or it could be around arts or health or, local ia, could be whatever. So sort of this idea of around a community of practice, but it would need to be a defined partnership of Native Hawaiian organizations, just like you think about a fleet of canoes, they're all clearly defined. And that's separate from our third category that we're providing funding for, and that's our Ho'okele program or sub-program, where there may be a larger Native Hawaiian organization that has capacity, administrative capacity to support smaller organizations in a particular area or an association or community of practice with subawards. When we went out for scoping meetings in the summertime, we learned that there's a lot of Native Hawaiian organizations, smaller organizations from rural areas that sometimes don't have the capacity or ability to apply for federal grants. Federal grants can be burdensome administratively. So we heard from smaller organizations that they didn't want to apply, or they were looking for easier ways to apply. So we established the Ho'okele program as an opportunity for a bigger entity, Native Hawaiian organization, that has that capacity to kokua, if you will, smaller NHOs within a particular area, or community of practice to apply for federal funding to support their program. So that's what the distinction is between Ova'a and Ho'okele, and we can get further into that as we go along. So next slide. Just to kind of break it down a little bit, and I'll try to get through this quickly. So with our individual awards through our Kiakahi program, the award type is a grant, a federal grant, and we're looking at funding ranges between $100,000 and $1 million. When we were assembling this funding opportunity, we're anticipating approximately 6 to 10 awards at about $500,000 each. It's not hard, it's just an estimate. So it could be more, could be less, but we kind of just to balance the numbers out, we set these estimates. Again, some examples of how a kiakahi, a single NHO, might align their work with our program priorities. So in that coping category, you have potentially a Native Hawaiian organization that stewards a cultural site, needs assistance repairing damage caused by some storm event, high surf or flooding, what have you. In the adaptation realm, it could be perhaps a single homestead association needing assistance in conducting some kind of vulnerability or developing an adaptation plan for their homestead on how to deal with climate change. Or in the transformational space, it could be, some technology Native Hawaiian organization that has some ideas around using generative AI to advance resilience or preserve indigenous knowledge or something like that. So these are all just examples, but they're intended to get you folks thinking about the work that you do and how this program can apply. So next slide. Within the Alva'a program, again, this is a partnership, a hui, a collaboration of Native Hawaiian organizations where there is sort of a lead NHO that applies on behalf of that hui. So kind of the po'o comes in, they get the grant award. And here, because it's a group, we up the funding ranges to $500,000 up to $2 million. So again, we estimated perhaps 6 to 10 awards, about 100 million, or I'm sorry, 1 million apiece. So some examples of what an Alva'a program could look like, where it's a Native Hawaiian NHO-led partnership around, say, healthcare that needs to provide counseling or mental health services after some type of disaster. So it's a hui, again, coming together. Or in that adaptive space, it's around organizations that serve youth, all coming together, recognizing and preparing for a future state around traditional agriculture or dealing with invasive species or environmental restoration. Again, just another example. Or it could be in that transformational space, a collaboration of NHOs with a common purpose. Say it's around community-based resource management, realizing that they need to hui together to influence change in decision making and resource management to better influence food preservation, subsistence food cultivation, etc., as well as protection of cultural resources. So again, just a series of examples here. Our third group, again, is around ho'okele. This is a little bit different because the applicant Native Hawaiian organization will be providing sub-awards to other Native Hawaiian organizations. The award type here will be a cooperative agreement, and I'll get into that in the next slide as to kind of what that means. But again, because of this type of program and the work that a ho'okele applicant will be doing, as serving as sort of this pass through to help others, we up the funding ceiling from 2 million to 5 million. And obviously, because of the dollar amount and the limited amount we have for funding, we estimated perhaps about 3 awards in this category at about 3.5 million each. So again, some examples that align with our program priorities. It could be a lead Native Hawaiian organization that knows how to deal with post-disaster recovery that provides assistance to smaller NHOs in that affected area. In that adaptation space, again, it could be an NHO that has relationships with NHOs across the state that need help in, say, coastal habitats, whether it's training or technical assistance to better understand changes in coastal processes, erosion, bleaching, etc. Or in that transformational space, who knows, there could be an NHO that can support NHOs in the education area around curriculum development, better helping our Native Hawaiian students understand the effects of climate change and think about how can we do it differently. So again, just some examples here. So with that, let me talk a little bit more about what a cooperative agreement is. Excuse me, it's similar to a grant award in that it's a set of funding provided to the recipient. However, with a cooperative agreement, as the name implies, it requires involvement or substantial involvement by the awarding agency in the implementation or design and implementation of that particular program. So in this case, Ho'okele recipient should expect to work closely with our Office of Native Hawaiian Relations in the design of their program, how they want to establish that subaward process, what that looks like. And it is negotiable and discussional between our office and the recipient on the degree and areas in which we may be involved, but in the subcategories that you see here on the slide, again, these are just examples of where we could potentially have involvement. So I would think for those NHOs that are interested in a Ho'okele grant proposal, think about it. Think about where you would need assistance from our office in designing your program, and as well as implementing, perhaps providing technical assistance or monitoring the outcome of that. So a little bit different than the Kiakahi and Ova'a program. So next slide. So just to recap everything real quickly, for this funding opportunity, we've announced it at $20 million. Again, we have our 3 award categories: Kiakahi from 100,000 to $1 million, Ova'a as a partnership from 500,000 to 2 million, Ho'okele from 2 million to 5 million. We're anticipating getting through this process and awarding letters in coordination with IBC by end of August next year. I reviewed the kind of estimated number of awards, so I won't go belabor that point. And then our award duration. So folks that are interested in applying, you have anywhere from 1 year up to 5 years as a period of performance to utilize your grant award. So a lot of latitude in thinking about your program, building it out over multiple years if needed, all the way out to 5 years. So next slide. With respect to eligibility, based on consultation and our scoping meetings earlier this year, we really designed this program to focus on Native Hawaiian organizations. So for this particular NOFO, or Notice of Funding Opportunity, it is limited only to Native Hawaiian organizations. And by NHO, we mean a nonprofit organization. I have a definition there on the slide below, based on what's in the federal regulations for grants and cooperative agreements to CFR 200. So again, it's limited to Native Hawaiian nonprofits that principally serve or benefit the Native Hawaiian community. And we have a definition below for what we mean by Native Hawaiian community. And then thirdly, that Native Hawaiian organization has expertise in a broad array of things. Any one of them, they don't have to do everything, but if your organization focuses on cultural heritage or resources or economic development or Native Hawaiian health, governance, INA stewardship, what have you, you could be eligible to apply for this. We also have some additional kind of requirements for those NHOs that we'll be applying on the next slide. And there we're asking that with the application package that the NHO provide a statement or what we're referring to as an attestation, something from the organization that's signed by the executive director or board or what have you, that says, yes, our NHO meets the definition of an NHO as defined in the notice of funding opportunity. And then for Ho'okele and Alva'a applicants, we're asking that you folks do the same for whoever your partner organizations are. And in Alva'a kind of hui, everybody needs to be an NHO, or in the Ho'okele, that as awards are going out, sub-awards are going out to smaller NHOs, that those NHOs similarly acknowledge that they meet the definition. We've had some questions in previous meetings and online, etc., about the applicability of our DOI's NHO list or 8A program under Small Business Administration. These sort of definitions and registrations are somewhat different than what we're asking for under our Kapapahuliau program. So just because your organization may be a registered NHO on DOI's list, or may be a registered NHO under Small Business Administration's program, it doesn't make you automatically eligible. What we're asking for to be eligible is that certification or statement, that attestation that your organization meets the definition of an NHO. So most times you guys do, but we're again just asking for that statement of saying, yes, we meet the definition as defined in the NOFO. So with that, I think I covered a lot of the highlights. I got one more. Just again, in terms of timeline, we announced the NOFO in November. We had our first meeting right after Thanksgiving. Today's our second meeting. Proposal submission deadline is next year, end of February on the 29th. Please pay attention to the time. It's at 6:59 Hawaii time, which is midnight Washington, D.C. East Coast time. So we had to kind of abide by that. But I would not recommend waiting till the 29th to submit your proposal. Please submit it earlier because there is a number of steps and you don't want to be waiting up until the last minute. Once the proposals come in, we're going to go through internal reviews. We hope to complete that and have a tentative list of awards by the end of May. We'll work with IBC to process those award documents, and it can take some time. But we expect to have IBC issue the letters of award by the end of August, and then we'll be in a place of a public announcement of our awardees sometime in September, early September. Could be before or after the 10th, but that's kind of what our estimate is. Yeah. And with that, I'll turn it over to Kapapahuliau to walk through the details on that application process. So over to you.
Okay, thanks, Stanton. Let's see. Okay, so yeah, Stanton filled everybody in on kind of the eligibility of everything. Obviously, again, if you guys if there's any questions, we'll have a Q&A at the end of this. So save your questions for that as well. And then we can call on you to answer them. I know there's probably some specifics on some of the eligibility questions or, I guess program priorities and things like that. One thing we do want to note is if your organization hasn't applied for federal funding before, is unfamiliar with it, we encourage you to register in sam.gov immediately. It can take a couple of weeks to couple of months for registration to go through. So you don't want to get hung up in something like sam.gov. We'll work with you to make sure, even if you do submit an application, we'll work with you to make sure that your registration is complete and all those things. And then grants.gov as well. So grants.gov is where you will apply for Kapapahuliau. So if you go to the grants.gov website, shucks, someone dropped the link in the chat for grants.gov and the actual notice of funding opportunity. Additionally, if you guys go to our website, www.doi.gov/Hawaiian/climate-resilience, we'll have a link through there as well, directly to grants.gov, where you can download the notice of funding and apply. So yeah, if folks need help with sam.gov or grants.gov, we do have some technical assistance available for folks, and they'll help you walk through that whole process. Yeah, we'll have the contact for that at the end of the slideshow. And even if you go to sam.gov itself and grants.gov, the help options on the websites themselves are super helpful as well. So don't hesitate to check on those as well. So sam.gov is kind of the new systems for award management that the federal government uses right now. It was updated from they used to have the DUNS number was something that was phased out a few years ago. So it will provide a unique entity identifier for when you apply. And so there's on the slide, we'll have the slides available on our website as well. I think you can go on there right now, and it should be up if you want to go to our website right there. And you can download the presentation for the links themselves. But we do have, but again, like I said, the service help desks are very helpful in the experiences that I've had with the grantees that we've had. So don't hesitate to reach out to them, or specifically us if you're unsure. Slide. And then applying through grants.gov, like I had mentioned, if you're in the funding opportunity on grants.gov, there will be some standard forms when you're applying that you will need to fill out. So these are some of the different ones that will be required of you guys. Some of them are I believe when you do apply, it won't let you submit or go to the next one unless you upload one of the forms. So I think that's super helpful. So in case to make sure that you don't miss something. The other thing I wanted to add is we are trying to put together as quickly as possible some kind of checklist for everybody. So to make sure you guys have all the paperwork involved, because it is kind of there are a ton of different forms to include with a bunch of different information on there. I do want to give an opportunity for King Noha and or Kim Rainey to kind of chime in. Are there anything else from sam.gov or grants.gov that you think would be important for folks to know?
No, Brother, I think you covered it all. If they follow all the samples that you have there and be able to fill the applications out, they should be able to be fine.
Okay, thanks, King. And yeah, so the way that, as Stanton mentioned in the beginning, our Office of Native Hawaiian Relations works with a separate Department of Interior Business Center office, which King is a part of, that they help us with a lot of the grant paperwork and things like that. So they'll be involved when you do apply. They'll be the ones receiving the applications and probably be the ones asking for more information when if that time arises down the road. Okay, so within the notice of funding itself, Section D is the main section where we're looking for the information for your proposal. So it's broken down within project narrative, and we do want to make sure everybody understands that there are additional project narrative requirements for Auva'a and Ho'okele applicants. So if you and your entity are looking for applying into one of those two categories, there are additional requirements. So make sure when you're going through the project narrative that you answer those as well as all the ones listed prior. So you'll have that. You'll have the budget justification and narrative. And then again, same thing. There's going to be some additional budget narrative information requirements for Auva'a and Ho'okele applicants. So yeah, just read it thoroughly. Make sure you guys answer all of those questions as well. And then again, Stanton mentioned the attestation from your governing body or CEO or whoever that may be, something documenting that your entity is a Native Hawaiian organization and confirming eligibility. And that requirement, Stanton had mentioned prior, but if you have questions about your organization's eligibility, you can follow up with us. But basically, if you meet those requirements, then make sure you include that attestation. There's a conflict of interest disclosure, partner letters of commitment. Those are for Auva'a applicants to make sure that your partnership is an actual partnership. We want to make sure that Auva'a applicants include those things. Letters of support for us are optional with your with other organizations that you're working with. Say you're a Kiakahi applicant. If there are some other organizations that you're working with, letters of support for your project are optional. The negotiated indirect cost rate agreement. So that will be for in relation to overhead costs or indirect costs. For the federal government, every organization is capped at 10% unless you have this negotiated indirect cost rate. And there's information available in the notice of funding for what that is. And so if your organization is something beyond 10%, then yeah, you would need to show that NICRA agreement. Let's see, there's a single audit reporting. I forget the King. What's the maximum for? I think it was $750,000 in federal funding is when the audit reporting.
Yeah, so that would be 750 dispersed. So if you have, say, 100, let's say you have $1 million worth of grant, okay? That $1 million doesn't qualify for the single audit, but you must have expended 750 of the total award within the fiscal year. So if the total gravity of the award that you have in a fiscal year is more than 750,000, then you're qualified for the single audit. But the total award of all your grant doesn't qualify you. Is the expenditure that qualifies that it has a total 750.
Okay, thanks, King. Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, so if your organization has expended over $750,000 in federal funding, then yeah, you will need this audit report. We can go to and then there's this overlap or duplication of effort statement as well. So yeah, next slide, Lisa. Okay, so the budget proposal and justification. So the SF 424A is an itemized budget breakdown. So make sure you fill those out. We're also asking for a budget narrative, which provides description of items connected to costs. There's information within the notice of funding for what to include in these things. Additional support documentation, methodology basis for estimating to support reasonableness of proposed costs. Those are all super helpful. Try your best to have unit costs as well. I think that's something that's important to show unit costs for items purchased. And then we have not included as a cost or used to meet cost sharing or matching requirements, another award. So yeah, so matching requirements matching is not a requirement for this grant proposal. So so there's no need for matching funds, no need to put in matching funds within your budget, unless you want to. My personal advice would be to not put it in, because you will be held to that matching requirement if you put it into your budget. So if we're not asking for it, so you no need worry about putting a matching requirement in. And then, so for us as the federal government, we're being held to this the 2 CFR Part 200 Subpart E, which is the cost principles for funding, and we have the link there. But basically, it's a nice long read if you need an evening help to sleep. But it's how we're held to our cost principles. So everybody's budget will need to follow those lines, and so it'll have information there about equipment purchases or supplies and pretty much everything under the sun for purchase related things. If you have a specific question for if you can purchase a certain thing, or if you should use your grant funding for X item or whatever, please reach out to us or the technical assistance contact, which will show at the end. So if you have a specific question, please just ask up front, and we can help work that out, because it really depends. It's a case by case basis, and how that item kind of meets your project goals and things like that. So this is just an example of the budget narrative itself, and it's a template that we've provided just as an example. Obviously, if you have your own template, or if you have your own way to have a budget narrative or include a budget detail, please feel free to use your own. But if you don't, we have a little template for you guys to use. So yeah, we have that there. And again, if you have questions about your budget narrative, if you've included the right information, please reach out to the technical assistance email, and they can help you out with that as well. So for the proposal review process, this is going to be in the notice of funding section E, and we'll have the scoring criteria is all listed out in there, and how we've broken down scoring for each category, the summary and project goals, objectives, eligibility, the qualifications, the budget, etc., and how the points are broken down for each. And so again, my advice would be to one, look at the requirements that we're asking you in section D to answer the questions, but also go back to section E, where you have this evaluation criteria, to make sure your project kind of answers some of these, and you can see how the point breaks down in those things. And we tried to make it so certain things, even if you missed one or two, it's not going to kill your proposal. But we just wanted to be as transparent as possible in the types of things we wanted to evaluate for this project. Yeah. The proposal review process is going to include a 12-member review panel. So once after February 29th, when the proposals are due, and if we don't have an extension, which if something happens, if government shuts down, or there's something that requires us to push the due date for this application, then we reserve the opportunity to push it back. But if that doesn't happen, beginning in March, we'll collect everybody's proposals. It'll be a 12-member review panel. There will be subject matter experts from Hawaii. We'll put them together from an array of expertise, so that we can have the best impartial a review of everybody's application as possible. Each person will be required to submit a conflict of interest disclosure. So that's something that's important for us. And then, Stanton had the dates for the selection of the awardees. So hopefully by May, we'll have by the end of April, end of May, we'll have a selection of awardees, and by the end of summer 2024, the Interior Business Center will have reviewed, and we'll be sending out letters of award to the awardees. And if there during the review process, when we're reviewing the applications, in the past we have for our other grant process, sometimes we will ask for more information from an applicant. So that might kind of delay things a little bit for our awards, but we may at that point reach out in case we need some additional information from your organization. Let's see. So post award, once awards are provided, the Department of Interior uses this asap.gov website, and this is the Treasury's automated standard application for payment system, and it's a place to request reimbursements for your project costs and things like that. And so you'll have to go through this whole process of signing up your organization to asap.gov once awards are made. And yeah, that can be something we'll be able to work on down the road. And we can help work you through that process if your organization does receive an award. So that's just some information on that. And then, yeah, here we go. Our technical assistance, like I had mentioned a few times, we do have technical assistance for this application process. So there's the email right there, grants.help@kalaimoku.com. You can email them for any questions. You can email them for help with your proposal if you have questions on your proposal itself. Obviously, you can also email myself, so my contact is there as well if you have general questions, and then just the other emails for folks that are involved in our process or where you might receive an email from once you've applied. So those are the contacts themselves. Again, you can find those on our website as well, which is located there at the top, and I had included it in the webinar chat too.